your glasses up, 'cause it's time to make a toast to all we have today. Hey, hey, so drink it up.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday Storyteller Series. My name is John Taglieri. It's Sunday. This is what we do every Sunday, 6 p.m. We are here on the Plymouth Rock TV channel, on Roku, on Distro TV, on all Apple products, and through Distro TV, we are on Amazon Fire. So you can find the show in a myriad of places nowadays. So there's really no reason for you not to be watching. But you should be here 6 o'clock every Sunday, because that's your first chance, and you want to see it for everybody else, so you can tell everybody the cool things you saw. How's your week been? I hope you're having a great week this week. I hope you have been kind. I say it at the beginning and at the end of every show. Be kind. Don't be a keyboard warrior, and don't say anything in a typed message you wouldn't have the nerve to say in front of somebody in fear of getting punched in the face for. But it's been a weird time. We all know that. We talk about it frequently. But I hope that you have been kind and life is treating you well. We're coming into fall now. It's the first week of fall. So the leaves are going to be changing. And I've got some amazing songwriters scheduled out for the rest of this year. It is going to be kind of awesome. But today I've got a guy I want to bring to you who we go back a bit. We met on the road. We met... he opened for someone and then became part of that band, and we're going to get into that. And I opened for the same act, and we met through that channel. And in his own right, he has been signed and has had hits and is an amazing songwriter. And I am talking about Mr. Pete Riley. And Pete Riley, he is from Liverpool, England, and he had some great success with his band Treehouse. He opened for Edwin McCain and then ultimately joined the band. And that's the channels we met, because I went out and toured with Edwin McCain and Sister Hazel and everybody that we both know along these ilks. Pete went on to write a lot of songs with Edwin McCain. One of them we're going to hear today. We're going to talk about the writing process. He's also written for a ton of different people. You can see the list there on the screen. It's way too long for me to go through. And I love that Angie Apparel's on that list, because I'm a big Angie Apparel fan. He's had appearances on TV all around the world. Let's just get to it, because we got a lot to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Pete Riley.
Hey man, how's it going, John?
How's it going, bud? How are you?
I'm good. I'm sitting here in Liverpool, in sunny Liverpool. It's 5 o'clock in the evening.
Very nice.
Life.
So tell everybody a little bit more about you than I did. I mean, we know we just briefly touched on the Edwin thing, and then you had Treehouse, and you were solo before that and after that. So kind of bring everybody up to speed on who Pete Riley is.
Well, okay, so basically the Treehouse was the kind of band my band we were going for like 4 or 5 years in Liverpool, making some inroads. But people were constantly telling us that we sounded more American than we did English, which was kind of weird. So eventually our manager at the time, a guy called Dan Priest, said, okay, we're going to go to Los Angeles. We're going to go and see what's going on in the States, in America. Everyone said, you're wasting your time. Nothing's going to happen. Blah, blah, blah. So we thought, well, we'll go anyway, because we'll have a great time. And we reached out to a promoter who set up these shows. Anyway, we go play America, and we were there for 4 weeks. And we were offered 2 record deals, man, which was just insane. And we've been going up and down the motorways of the UK. We've been dealing with labels, and we hadn't really kind of had anyone, commit to the band, because they were scared. They didn't really know where to place the band.
Right.
Kind of like it was almost like a hybrid of English and American sound. But we went to the States. We did 4 weeks, ending with a show in the Whiskey A Go Go, which was great because all our equipment blew up.
Classic club.
And we got back to the UK, and it was nuts because our manager phoned us up. We'd been back in the UK for about 4 or 5 days, and he phones us up down and says, "You're not going to believe this." And I'm like, "Wow, what's going on, man?" And he goes, "Sony Records and Atlantic Records were both at the gig in the Whiskey in Los Angeles, and they love the band. They want to sign the band." So I was like, "You're kidding me, man?"
That's
I'm on
awesome.
the phone. You've got to be kidding me. But he says, "No, man, this is genuine. It's true." So Atlantic Records asked us to fly back to the States to they wanted to see us again, but we didn't have any. We were we were broke, man. We were completely broke. So Atlantic said, "Well, if you put a show on in Liverpool, we'll fly over with Sony Records." And the two labels flew over. We put a show on in a place called the Lomax in Liverpool, which was like a kind of modern cavern, if you like, at the time. And sure enough, man, we played the gig, and Sony offered us the deal, and then Atlantic upped the deal. And the next day, we were a signed band, which is crazy, man. I mean, it's almost fairy tale. And if someone told me, I wouldn't, I just wouldn't believe it.
And all those people who said you were wasting your time.
No, that's exactly how it went down. I remember leaving the Adelphi Hotel because that's where the label big meeting took place. And Paul O'Brien, the bass player from Treehouse, we both walked out the hotel and we looked at each other and we were like, "Wow, we're now a signed act. How crazy is that, one?"
Yep.
And we went over to a little pub facing the hotel and had a few beers.
See, it's funny because you and I did the exact opposite. I signed with a label out of the UK, and they signed me in Las Vegas.
Wow.
So the US labels flew to the UK to sign you, and my label flew to Vegas to sign me.
Maybe you should move to Liverpool, and I should move to.
There we go. Nice.
Yeah, so we kind of Treehouse. We did the Nobody's Monkey album, which was great, and we toured with the Hootie and Hootie and the Blowfish, and we went out and did loads of, and obviously that's where I met Edwin as well, Edwin McCain. But yeah, we went out and toured there for like 2 years. Had a fantastic time, and then eventually we come back to the UK, and kind of everyone sort of started to kind of go their own way a little bit, as it happens in music. It's difficult to kind of keep things moving at the pace that it was going.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the Treehouse kind of side of it, and then.
So then you go solo.
Go on. So what was that?
Then you went solo after that.
Well, what happened then was we came back. We arrived back in the UK, and I think the last tour we did was with the Cranberries, the band from Ireland, and then after that we sort of just. I think everyone was burnt out. Everyone we've been playing live non-stop for probably about 6-7 years. 5 years before we got signed, and then 2 years of touring the States, and then back in the UK. Everyone was burnt out, and everyone just decided to go their own way. And I was kind of sitting back in Liverpool, to be quite honest, and I'm thinking, well, what happens now? The band is kind of sort of. No one actually said we'd split, but we kind of know.
Kind of just drifted.
Yeah, everyone just kind of goes their own way. And
now, did you still have any obligations with the label, or were you done with everything?
No, they did want to do a second record with us, but our publishing, we signed to EMI Publishing, and they kind of didn't want us to, but the label did. And my only regret with Treehouse looking back is I wish we'd have followed through and completed the second album, because most of the time it's the label that don't want to do the second album, but in our case the label did.
Right.
Didn't want to. They had another label set up, so it was a bit of a kind of dangerous thing to do. So we left Atlantic, and then in the middle of all that, the people at EMI, they left, they moved on, so we were kind of left stranded, like in this no man's land. So it was a weird sort of situation, but
yeah.
I was sitting back in Liverpool, and then I got a call out of the blue from Edwin McCain, who you introduced, we were talking about earlier on. We both know Edwin, and he had just finished the album Far From Over.
Great record.
It's a great record, man. And this was around 2000, 1999, 2000, and on the album I think it had more kind of electric guitar than usual.
Okay.
Obviously, Larry is an amazing player, and they I think they tracked more electric than they kind of realised. And Edwin said, "Look, why don't we come out and kind of jump in with us?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, I'd love to."
Yeah.
We toured earlier in the year with Edwin, and Edwin, he really kind of, we just kind of clicked. It was weird. When Treehouse opened for Edwin, we just it was like I'd known Edwin for years.
He's that kind of guy, man. When you meet Edwin, you automatically just know Edwin. He's just
Yeah.
salt of the earth, good people.
Yeah, man, and Larry and Craig, and they're like my kind of American family now.
Yeah.
Kind of, Edwin
And bringing you in and having you and Larry as the guitar players was phenomenal.
it was great, because Edwin said, well, why don't you kind of come over and kind of see, you should do like a month or so. So I was like, yeah, and I went over and we did like I think it was a 3-month run of Far From Over. And then, to be honest with you, John, I thought that was going to be it. I thought Edwin was kind of like going to go back to doing, and then Edwin's like, listen, man, why don't you just join the band? And I was like, what? He goes, just join the band, man. We want you to join.
That's awesome.
He said, and it was nuts because he said, think about it, have a think about it. I'm like, think about it, man, I'm in. I'm in, man.
Wait, let me think. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in. What's this to think about, man? And so that was it. And that lasted, I toured non-stop with Edwin then for a decade, 10 years.
Yeah.
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's through the time is when you and I met.
Yeah. I think we first met in BB King's.
BB King's, New York. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at that time, Edwin and I had been doing some dates together when he was doing solo, just him. Like, he would just go out, Larry, Craig, and him.
Uh-huh.
And I'd been opening for him on some of those shows. Larry played on 2 of my records. We were all sort of meshing together at the same time as well. So it was a great time. What a great time of music that was.
It was, man. It was magic. It was.
Okay, so now you start writing with Edwin. And let's talk about Shooting Star, because that's a song that did really well that you wrote with Edwin. So.
Well, it's funny because we were tracking. I think it was. What album was that on? Was it on Lost in America or? No, wait, no. It was on. I think it was on Scream and Whisper. And we were tracking. We were recording Scream and Whisper in Atlanta, in Sonica Studios in Atlanta. And Edwin had been on a session with Angie Aparo, and they'd kind of thrown this kind of idea that. And he was like, we need to get on this, and we need to kind of. I don't even think it was. I might be right in thinking that it wasn't even scheduled to be on the record. But then we finished it, and we were both like, "This is a cool song." So it's kind of, it's one of those tracks that when we recorded it, everyone kind of looked and realized this is a great tune.
So how do you start writing? Was it like his idea, your idea? Was it organic together?
Edwin had come up with the idea of Shooting Stars, and brought it in, and we, as I say, he worked on other bit with Angie, and then because that can happen. I mean, you can be working on ideas and get like a verse or a chorus, or and then further down the line we can something else. Or, that's quite sort of common, I think. I mean, I've not quite where I work. Or it happens a lot now where you're firing files over on the internet and stuff, and so it was that kind of vibe. We just got in, and he's kind of knocking it about, he's playing it, and I think we were in the kitchen, and we both kind of just grabbed a guitar each, went into the library and kind of locked the door, and just sat there and kind of finished the song and come out, and then we played it to the guys, and they were like, yeah, man, it sounds great.
So did it translate well when you started recording it from, like, you're writing the song on 2 acoustics, did it translate the way you wanted it to in the production?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
I think so. I think...
Because we've all had those songs where you write it and then you record it and you're like, it's not, there's something wrong, like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, man. Some songs can be like that, but I think with the Edwin McCain band, and I think, to be honest, Treehouse was a bit like, I think the musicianship in those bands, people kind of almost automatically know what to do without sounding.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very rare someone's kind of going down a complete dark alley. Everyone's kind of, you listen to the song, and Dave, for example, Dave Arson, if you play the correct groove straight away. Larry had kind of, jump on, and then he'd play the exact, so. Maybe 2 or 3 run through. You'd run through it maybe 2 or 3 times, and then
Right.
I'm not kidding, man. We'd be like, okay, let's cut the song. It's very, I mean, I think with Edwin and again with Treehouse, if we went in to record songs, if we were on the fifth or sixth pass, then it wasn't working, you know, and we'd
Yeah.
kind of move on, and you know what I mean. We'd kind of, and occasionally you go back to that song, but I think when you're kind of when you're in the groove and you're in the vibe, if you kind of don't nail it within the first, I don't know.
Yeah, because that's when it starts to get like overproduced, and the life starts to leave it, and it just becomes kind of generically sterile a
But
bit.
you kind of start to overthink it as well.
Yeah.
I think. And a lot of the stuff that even vocal takes, when Edwin and the Treehouse again, listening back to some of those records, in terms of pitch, we've got all this auto tune now, but I listen back to some of those records and there's little kind of nuances and little kind of bits that are not perfect, but that's kind of what glues them all together, you know?
Yeah,
And I think that's lost. And when I listen to a lot of new music, sometimes it's almost too perfect,
yeah.
you know?
Sometimes they do, and I don't say sometimes, a lot. They produce the life out of it.
Yeah.
The organic life is gone, and it's very slick. You're right. Sometimes those little tiny blems that most people wouldn't hear, but guys like you, we'll hear them. You give it that little, oh yeah, because
Yeah.
it's that little reality, that little life. Because we would make those blems on stage, but nobody would notice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
So-
you have to go back to listen to, if you go back and listen to, for example, if you listen to Abbey Road or the White Album, those albums are classic records, but they're full of imperfection. You
Yep.
listen to a bass line on one track, and it'll be ever so slightly kind of even out of tune, but it glues it all together for me. It
Yeah.
gives it a lot more kind of weight, if that's the right word. It just, I don't know. It sounds right to me.
I agree. All right, so let's do this. Let's hear it, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pete Riley playing a song he wrote with Edwin McCain, and this is called "Shooting Star."
Well, start it again. Keep our love in a plain brown box. Keep it tied with a simple lock. Hold it close, cause it's all we got. You think it's ordinary, but it's not. In a world that's starting to fade, a little love could pave the way. Don't keep it tied with a simple lock. You think it's ordinary, but it's not. Cause maybe this life is just about love and tenderness. If all we are shooting stars, or maybe we can't find all of this pain and loneliness. If all we are shooting stars, I'm tired of hearing about the bling bling. We're so concerned with material things. It's all cards and diamond rings. Do you think it's gonna ease your sting? Is that a hole that you can't feel? Velvet rope overkill. Free your mind and let your heart sing. But just remember that they're only things. Cause maybe this life is just about love and tenderness. If all we are shooting stars, maybe we can't find all of this pain and loneliness. If all we are shooting stars, 'cause I used to live by the minute, but I was too blind to see. Now I found the strength to admit it. Now it's all I believe. please believe. Maybe this life is just about love and tenderness. If all we are a shooting star, maybe we can't fight all of this pain and loneliness. If all we are a shooting star, yeah. Oh, we're just shooting stars. Oh no, no, we're shooting stars. Oh yeah, we're just shooting stars. Oh no, 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 no.
Nice, man. Nice. That's a great song.
Nice, man. Yeah, it's fun to play.
And it's nice to hear your interpretation, like your voice on it. You know, I'm so used to hearing that song with Edwin's voice on it, so it's really kind of cool to hear your voice and your vocal inflections on it.
Well, for a long time, I didn't play it because kind of, I was in Edwin's band, and it's an Edwin McCain song, even though I kind of co-wrote it with
Right.
Nanji. But I think there was enough time in between me being in the band and me being back in the UK. So, because people would say to me, you should record that song, man, you should record it.
Why
So
not?
in the end, I did record it, and it's in the set now, and it's in my live set, and people love it, In fact, on the last tour in November, on the last gig of the tour with Edwin, I think it was Philadelphia was the last show. I opened the show, and I played my set, and I played the Treehouse songs, and at the end, I said, I'm going to play a song that Edwin and I wrote called Shooting Star, and I played it, and when I went off stage, Edwin looks at me and goes, Shooting Stars, man. He goes, you kidding me? You played. I was going to play it today.
Oh,
And I was like, you haven't played it on the whole tour. He was kidding, man. He was kidding. But it was fun.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so next up, we're going to go to a song called Odd Shoes.
Yeah.
So tell me about Odd. Where'd that title come from? Now, let me ask you a question first. When you write, are you typically a title? You write titles down, random titles, keep things around, or do you just like, oh, there it is, and you just start writing a song? Like, or do you have is it a long process? Are you a spontaneous writer? What's your thing kind of work like?
It's if I'm honest, John, it's different. Well, each time it could be different, if I'm honest. I mean, I do like to get titles. Sometimes I'll get a title and go, that's cool, that's a really kind of cool title. You'll kind of build a song around that. And it depends if I'm co-writing with other people, then it can be a different thing again. But if I'm kind of at home and I'm writing on my own, I will work off a title or an idea, but I generally kind of find a melody first. I'll kind of be, playing and just kind of watching TV, strumming away, and then I'll be like, okay, that's cool. What's that? And then I'll sit there and go, okay, well that sounds like a really cool verse or really cool chorus item. So, but if I'm honest, it changes each time. So, this particular song was inspired by. Ironically, was inspired by a photograph, which is in the kitchen, and it's Pete Jr. when he's 3 years old, and he's in like a little cowboy suit, and he's got his two guns, and it's a photograph of Pete shooting the sun. And each morning I'd come down, I'd make me coffee, and I'd look at that photograph and I'd think, there's a song in there, man. I know there's a song in that picture. I just need to figure out what it is.
Right.
And when he was a kid, he sort of, he used to love getting dressed up in like Spider-Man outfits and Batman outfits.
As he should. Nice.
Yeah. But the thing is, John, he'd want to wear all these suits at the same time. So he kind of put them all on. And he went through a phase of wearing a red shoe and a blue shoe. We call them wellies in the UK. They're like winter boots, you know.
Okay.
So, and I'd have to take him out. I'd have to take him out the park. And, you know, I'd see parents looking at me going, "Look at the way he's dressed that child. It's terrible," you know. I'd be like, "It's not me. It's him. He loves
Yeah, he
it.
picked it, not me.
Yeah, it's not me. I'm not taking responsibility for this. It's him. He won't go out the door. He'll kick off unless he puts his own
Oh, would he throw? Would he throw a tantrum if?
Oh man, he used to kick off, man. We'd be like, shocking. If he didn't have a Spider-Man, he'd have a cape, an eye patch, 2 odd shoes. It was,
I love it.
but in the end, I'm like, you know what, wear whatever you want. So anyway, going back to the picture, there's a photograph, and I just needed to kind of write that song, to find out what it was saying, and that's where the Odd Shoes title kind of came from. And then that's a good example of a title and a visual kind of, which was the narrative for the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, another question too that I always like to ask: do you write a lot of autobiographical, or are you good at kind of creating things out of your head that maybe are a story you heard somewhere else, or just your imagination, or is it always something from life for you?
I think early on in Treehouse, it was more kind of creative, because I was only 25 then, and to be quite honest, you haven't lived enough, you haven't cried enough, you haven't laughed enough.
Yeah.
To kind of know what real life's about,
Yeah.
So you're kind of dipping into maybe other people's lives, other people's stories, and using a heavy kind of dose of creativity as well, just making these characters up. But as I've got older, I tend to kind of, it's less kind of global and more writing about family and more about what I'm experiencing now. I experience now as a dad and a husband. And,
Now you've got stories, you've got experience,
Yeah.
you've got life to draw from.
Well, yeah, you can kind of, it's all there, man.
Yeah.
You don't really have to look far. You kind of, it's just the little things. It's. I think the art is knowing when something really cool like that happens, and knowing when to kind of go, that needs to be documented, that needs to be written down, or that's a great idea for a song. I do that a lot, to be honest. I mean, it drives my wife crazy. We can be out somewhere having a, I don't know, having a meal, or in the cinema or whatever, and if I see something and I go back to the room, I've got to stop and write it down. And,
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just what we do, isn't it? So you're constantly observing and stuff. But I think, as I say, in the latter years, it's more, the songwriting comes more from life experience, my own personal kind of life experience.
And I always say too, and I've said it every week on the show with every guest I've had. I believe that it's out there. The muse,
Yeah.
the magic and the muse is just there, and at a certain time it picks you, and it goes
Yeah.
here, and if you open it, you take the song, and it drops a great song on you, and if you're not, then you miss it. Those are the 3 a.m. like you get up to go to the bathroom and you're like and it's gone before you wake up again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm one of those believers that a lot of times we're not songwriters, we just get a gift. Here, this one's for you.
Absolutely.
kind of thing.
I've done workshops in the past, songwriting workshops, and people, will ask that question. How did you write that? And I'd love to kind of take responsibility for these things and say, yeah, man, this is how I did. The truth of the matter is, I don't know, and I still don't know, and I think that's what's magic about it. You can. It's funny. An old friend of mine, Mick Asato, who's sadly no longer with us. He's one of the best musicians on the planet. And when Edwin done his one and only tour of the UK, it was me, Edwin, and Craig Shields. He kind of sat back and observed one day. Edwin and I went into the hotel room, and he said, "You guys went in there, and an hour later, he came out with a brand new song." And he said, "How do you do it?" And I said, I have no idea. I don't know. It's kind of that thing when you finish and you go, wow, an hour ago, that
Yeah.
didn't exist.
Yeah. And I love those moments. I love those moments where you just sit back and you're like, Wow.
Yeah, and that's what makes you do it, man. I think that's kind of, another reason, people say, well, why do you still do it? And it's when you get those moments when that happens, and it's like, oh man, it's spiritual, man. It really
So
is.
now let me ask the flip side. Have you ever had those times where you've got nothing?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you go through those periods where, you're kind of waiting, and then you start to kind of panic a little bit because you think, well, maybe that's it. But what I've learned is to kind of not push it, don't push it, man. Just sit back and it'll come. The universe works in funny ways, man.
Right.
It'll come when you're least expecting it. You can say, there's days I get up and I'll be working on a tune and it's not working. And sometimes that'll go for weeks, and sometimes it'll turn into months.
Right.
But I've learned as I've got older. Back in the day, when I was in Treehouse, for example, I'd have like people phoning me, like my manager would be like, "Well, have you been writing new tunes? Have you been, and it wasn't that he was kind of putting pressure in the band, I'd have call in a nice way, and what would you? And so you kind of, you sort of feel like you've got to constantly be turning new material. But as
Right.
you get older, or as I've got older, I've just kind of learned to sit back and go, when it comes, it'll come.
Yeah. And when it comes, accept it. You start to know those moments.
Well, I was listening to an interview recently with John Cougar, and he said something that really resonated with me. He said, as he's got older, he's learned how to get out of his own way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
I get that.
Yeah, man. And I stopped and I just thought, you know what? Yeah, man. I'm having that. I get that. Sometimes we can get it our own way, and before an idea or anything creative even comes out of the gate, we kind of shut it down. You know what I mean? Because I think if you kind of step aside and just let it be, more often than not, at the end of the session, you're going to come away with something pretty cool, man.
Yeah. There was a period, man, when I started writing EPs instead of records, because I was watching the trend of singles were more prevalent than full records, right? We're 2008, 9, 10, around that time. My co-writer and I would write a song in my living room and then walk into the studio and cut it. And we said nothing gets more than 2 or 3 takes.
Yeah.
And we did 4 or 5 EPs that way. Literally just completely, like, of course we would do the vocal takes the right way, but musically, the drums, if I didn't hit the drums in 3 takes, we moved on.
Yeah.
The song didn't want to talk to us that day. And
Yeah.
we literally did EP after EP that way, like write it, record it, no thought, no pre-production, no overproducing. And I think there's a magic in that.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of where it's at. I think for me, that's the way I much prefer to work that way than, agonizing over, production, for example. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know it's nice when you hear something that's been recorded really well.
Yeah.
Produced well. But, I'd much prefer to hear, a good idea played bad than a bad idea played good.
That's a great line. That's a song right there.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it is, man. I'll write that one. We'll write that one.
Done. All right, and I love that this song's about your son.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's not just about Pete, actually. It's about my daughter, Fern, as well. It's about, I mean, the message in the song is you kind of blink and you go from 20 to 50, and you're like, wow, where did what just happened, man?
yeah, dude, I blinked and my daughter's in 1st grade. Like, you were in diapers, like yesterday.
And you should, I tell you, man, cherish every moment of that song, because,
Yeah.
I tell you, man, my son's 26, my daughter's 21, and to me, I still feel like I still think they're little babies, man. And it's nuts.
That's awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Pete Riley and Odd Shoes.
Little boy in the photograph, where are you now? Draw your gun, shoot the sun until it goes down. Just look what's become of you. You with your heart shoes. Suddenly I turn around, a little older now. And suddenly I see myself in front of me, but there's no need to doubt, 'cause you work it out. What life is really about is really about. Little girl spinning round, where are you now? You're catching butterflies, lullabies, laughing out loud, 'cause you act like you don't care. You with your long hair. Suddenly I turn around, a little older now. And suddenly I see myself in front of me, but there's no need to doubt, 'cause you both work it out. What life is really about. You keep changing. There's nothing I can do. You keep changing, 'cause you act like you don't care. You with your long hair. Suddenly I turn around, a little older now. And suddenly I see myself at 17, looking back at me, but there's no need to doubt, 'cause now I know what life is about. It's really about. It's really about. Little boy in the photograph, where are you now?
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. That's an awesome song, man.
Thanks, man.
I love that. That introspective, looking back on it all, hoping you did it right,
Yeah,
kind of thing. That's awesome.
it's one of
Cool.
those.
I like
songs.
that three. I like that 3-4 time run on it.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a bit of McCain in there because he's he's the king of 3/4.
Yeah, he does a lot of 3-4.
It's soaked in. I've played that many songs 3/4. Kind of, it's in now. It's in there.
We all did, man. You know, we all are products of our influences, products of our touring, products of our world, who you listen to. If you go through my catalog, you knew who I was listening to over the years. Because every record you were like, oh, okay, People used to say to me like, well, what do you sound like? I'm like, well, if Edwin McCain and Bon Jovi had a baby, that would be it. And they were like, okay.
Yeah, but I think that was the cool thing about, Edwin and I, because we both, I think, if we're honest, we kind of both influenced each other. I think because I remember when Edwin first called Treehouse Live, he thought we were going to, because at the time it was the big kind of Brit invasion, Oasis, bands like Blur, and it was kind of very kind of indie, very kind of quintessentially British sounding music. And I think when Edwin first came to a show in New York, he was with a guy called Francis Dunnery from a band called It Bites. I don't know if you know Francis.
No.
If you don't, check him out. He's amazing, Francis Dunnery. He's an English guy as well, by the way.
Okay.
Really, really funny guy, man. He's hilarious. But Edwin came to the show, and we played this little tiny club in New York called Brownies years ago, man. And it was funny because he said he was like chatting to people, and we came on and we started to play. And he said, I just immediately stopped chatting. And because he said, in between songs, you guys were talking, and I just couldn't understand the word you were saying. Scouse accent. He said, and then suddenly you'd start playing, and you guys sounded like from South Carolina. It was just weird, So we kind of, I think, I kind of rubbed off of maybe a little bit on Edwin, maybe, and I know he definitely did, likewise on me. And I think around the sort of Scream and Whisper, those kind of albums, I think that was the sort of pinnacle of the hybrid sound of the two of us, because we were both
right
writing a lot together then as well. A lot of the songs on those records, Lost in America, kind of a lot of co-writing going on those albums, which I absolutely love them.
Yeah, I've done a ton of co-writing, and I love co-writing. It's you can get out of your own little box, because sometimes as writers we sort of wind up in our we go to the same chords, we start the same feel. It's nice when you have somebody kind of drag you away from your normal. Yeah.
I mean, for a long time, John, I was always kind of, Edwin was even less than me, but I was always a little bit kind of reluctant to co-write, because I just didn't know how it worked and how it would go. And then as I kind of got older, again, it's an age thing. I started kind of writing with other people. And what I found, more often than not, the bit that sometimes when you're in I don't know if it's happened to you, you're co-writing, and there's a section in the song, it might be a lyric, it might be a melody, and you think, I'm not keen on that bit. I don't really like it, but you don't say anything. You carry on. Yeah. And more often than not, that turns out to be, after the song's finished, it becomes my favorite bit in the song. And that kind of was a bit of a valuable lesson for me, because for a long time, you kind of, especially when you're young, you've got like tunnel vision and you're driven, and
yeah,
you kind of want to go at it like,
Well, when you're young, you know everything.
You know what? When you're young, you should, and I think you should at that age. But as you get older, obviously, the more you live, the least you know, and so you're kind of more open to letting other people's ideas.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, you record. I mean, it's happened a lot with me. I'll finish the track and we'll record it, and then I'll go, man, that bit that I was unsure of is my favorite bit in the song. It's being brave enough to kind of admit that. And kind of let the light shine on other people,
And that's a great word too. Be brave in your songwriting, because there's some people who write really safe. Be brave. Say things maybe you wouldn't expect you to say.
Definitely. I mean, Bowie and Neil Young and people like that. I mean, they were kind of, they did that a lot, man. They would make an album and everyone would love it, and they'd want like, Neil Young's case, they want Harvest 2, and he's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go complete opposite. And that takes a lot of courage, to do.
Yeah.
But, there's very few out there that do it. But the ones that do it, fair play.
I want to get to your new single, because I know I'm note down, and I know that we're starting to run a little out of time, so I want to make sure we get your single in here.
Okay.
So, and we're going to play the music video for this. And I
Okay.
remember you dropped this not too long ago, and I watched it when you dropped it, when you made the announcement. And it's such a great song, and I want to make sure we get it in here. So, Something Inside. Tell me about it. Everything
Well,
about
you
it.
know what? It's funny that Something Inside was a song that was recorded a long time ago. It's off an album called The Lost Album, which, again, sometimes I need to kick up the backside to do things. I can be my own worst enemy. And a guy in Holland, AJ Terlo, who's a promoter, who I've done many shows for over in the Netherlands, he had a bunch of songs that hadn't gone on albums of mine and didn't make the Treehouse records. And so there was a kind of a back catalogue of quite a lot of songs, maybe 20 or 30 songs. And he said to me, and he was kind of on my case for like, you need to pick 10 of those songs, put them out as a lost album. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it, man, I'll do it. And, you know, of course, I didn't do it. And so he'd phone me up and he'd be like, man, you need to do it. So in the end, I'm going to do this just to shut him up, you know.
Like, damn it.
So I did it, and I put the Lost album together, and we shot a video for the single. I mean, we were in lockdown, so we couldn't go into a studio. We couldn't.
Right.
So we basically, I just said to the guy who directed it, Paul Andrew, who's a great friend of mine, I just said to him, look, let's shoot the video in my back garden. So he came down, and we got Pete Junior on the Beatle bass, Sean Burns on drums, and we just literally did the video. And the crazy thing about it is, John, this single, the last 6 weeks has been added to BBC Radio Scotland, BBC Radio Merseyside, Liverpool Live 24/7, Key 107. It's just took on a life of its own, which proves again that I probably am the worst person to pick my. Because I just would have kind of, you know, I wouldn't have put it out. So sometimes it's that kind of going back to the John Mellencamp thing. Get out of your own way. Get out of the way. Let other people. Sometimes it's nice to hand it over to other people and let them, you know, run with it. You know.
So, was this completely written by you? Like, is this a...
Yeah, this was written by me just in the very early days of Treehouse. So it was very early on.
Isn't it fun when you could take a song that's older, because that's got to be 20 years old now, right?
Yeah.
And still make it sound fresh and relevant.
Yeah, it is one. And it just goes to show that, again, I mean, I know I'm referencing the Beatles a lot, but McCartney wrote When I'm 64 when he was 14 years old. You know, so that kind of, and that went on Sgt. Pepper, which he was, what, 27, 28?
Yeah.
He wrote that song When I'm 64 when he was 14. It just kind of goes to show if, you know...
A good song is a good song.
Yeah, it will stand up, man. If it's a good song, if you can play it on a piano or an acoustic guitar without all the lights and all the production, if it stands up, then that for me is the acid test.
And I like that you said your son's in the video.
He's in the video playing bass.
Do you know how many dads would love a moment like that?
Oh man, that's why
Awesome.
That's why we did it. That's why we did it, man. It's like, because initially the guy that filmed the video, it was just going to be me playing guitar. But then I got this kind of brainwave and thought, wait there, I want to kind of Pete to be in the video, Pete Junior, and you know, get Pete's friend Sean, and so it's something that I can look back. I mean, I did it purely for selfish reasons. So I can look back in years to come and go, that's always going to be there for me to look at, and I just got such a kick out of it, man. It was unbelievable.
All right. Well, let's play the music video.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Pete Riley and Something Inside.
This is an isolated incident. We will continue as this story unfolds.
to go right ahead and see this whole thing through. And I think I believe in love at first sight. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's something I didn't till I saw you. 'Cause I need to get you on your own. I need to take you in my car to show you the mountains far from home. I need to get into your heart, your heart, your heart. And tell me you feel the same way too. Ooh. And tell me you want my love like I want you. 'Cause I need to get you on your own. I need to take you in my car to show you the mountains far from home. I need to get into your heart. 'Cause I need to get you on your own. I need to take you in my car to show you the mountains far from home. I need to get into your heart, your heart, your heart. I need to get into your heart, your heart, your heart. I need to get into your heart, your heart, your heart. I need to
That are many scientists have begun studying the virus.
Nice. Nice. That's a great song. And I remember when it came out, and I was all like, ooh, new Pete Riley music. Because, you know, we were all, like you said, we were in quarantine, and I was catching everything from everybody. So when it came out, I was excited about it. That's cool that that's your backyard.
Yeah, it is, man. That's
Talk about low budget.
Yeah.
Your son's in it. It's
Yeah.
it's an easy, you know, afternoon shoot, and you're getting added to every radio station around.
It's nuts. It's nuts. I mean, no money involved, just kind of, you know, low budget. And I mean, I think the criteria for the video was, let's have fun. Let's have some fun.
Right.
And that's it. You know?
So, ladies and gentlemen, right down here, Pete's information has been scrolling the whole show. So I hope you grabbed it. His Facebook, his website are right there. What's your Instagram, YouTube? Where else can everybody find you?
Yeah, the usual places like www.peteriley.com, Facebook, obviously everyone. You know, I don't really do the Instagram and Twitter. Actually, there is an Instagram account, no, a Twitter account, but I have to confess I don't do that. Nobody else does it because I'm a technophobe. You know? So if there's anything involving buttons and kind of small phones, and plus I'm blind as a bat as well. I can't really see that well.
You mean you're not doing dance videos on TikTok these days?
You don't wanna
Pete
see-
Riley dance videos?
You don't want to see that, man. Hey, you know what? That could be my next big thing.
There you go.
That
There you go. That would be funny.
would be funny.
I haven't gotten into the TikTok thing either. I looked at it and I'll scroll through it once in a while, but I can't.
I just think there's enough going on to kind of, in my head anyway, I don't need other kind of gadgets to
Yeah.
you know. Yeah,
Any quick advice for songwriters? Young songwriter. You got a kid in front of you who's a young songwriter. He's 20 years old and he's like, what's your one piece of advice you would give him?
One piece of advice, I'd say, do it for the love, because you're not going to make dough out of it, and always go. Never miss a gig. If you have a gig, make sure you get to the gig. Doesn't matter how ill you feel or how rubbish or crappy you think the gig is, do the gig. But you've got to do it for the love, John. If you're not, anyone who's doing it for any kind of other reason or other motive, then don't bother.
Yeah.
Because there's much easier ways to make a living, much easier ways.
Yep.
You know, you've got to really be passionate about what you do.
Cool. Well, man, I want to thank you for taking the time today to do this with me. I know your schedule is busy and hectic, and I know that life has got everybody running around with family and home, and I'm homeschooling my kids. I don't know how things are going over in Liverpool right now.
Yeah, the kids are they only just went back to school, but now, like yesterday, they've said the whole he's gone back into lockdown. So, your guess is as good as mine how that whole thing's going to.
Right. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it,
Hey,
man.
man, listen, you know what? I've had a blast, and it's been. Thanks for inviting me on, but more importantly, it's been great to hang out with you, man. It's been too long.
Good to see you again. Good to chat. We should pick some time and do some songwriting.
Let's do it, man.
All right.
Do it.
We'll talk after we get off. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you for watching this week. Thanks for coming here. Next week, my guest is Tyson Leslie. Tyson is a journeyman. He's been in a bunch of different bands. Currently, he's the keyboard player for Vixen, believe it or not. But he's got amazing songs of his own, and we're going to talk about his whole career next week. I want to thank you guys for coming back this week. This is the Sunday Storytellers. Let me try that one more time. This is the Sunday Storytellers series. My guest today was Pete Riley, and I want to say thank you again to him. Again, as I said in the beginning of the show, be kind. Treat people with kindness. Treat people with respect. Don't be a keyboard warrior. And in case you need to find us, here's our Facebook.
Up to you smiling on the way across the great divide. I'm out the door, got the pedal to the floor. The world around us stuffed inside this ride to California. I recorded all the hellos and goodbyes in my mind, I can play them back in memories and daydreams on a whim. The sound in my eyes is the truth and the lies. I'm finding my way through life's little disguise. And the shield before us tells the lives of splattered flies. Drove for hours, the good moon on our side. We've got the power, no we won't let it subside. We're drinking Red Bull to keep our eyes from fantasizing. Two headlights and they're headed for the stars tonight.